Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you major news developments from around the world. The leaders of NATO countries gathered for a summit in London on the 70th anniversary of the founding of the organization at the height of the Cold War. While all the media focus was on the supposed snub of Donald Trump by Justin Trudeau, the alliance leaders actually face a lot of internal differences over a number of global issues. However, the larger question remains of what the role of the organization is in today's world. We spoke to Abdul on this issue.
So, Abdul, yesterday was the 70th anniversary of NATO, and the NATO summit also just ended. But we're seeing that more and more these debates are emerging between the members themselves about the relevance of NATO today. But at the same time, we're also seeing that the NATO is also expanding. So, what do you think is the reason behind this? Is the reason behind these debates and this that are emerging about the relevance of NATO?
The basic reason for this debate is the disagreement over the nature of dominance in the world politics. During the Cold War, when NATO was formed, it was quite clear that they had to fight the European countries, the Western European countries and the United States, the not only economic but also the military power might of the Soviet Union. So there was a rivalry, some kind of rivalry, which is no more there. But there is still a threat emerging from China and Russia. This threat is particularly against the United States of America. This is American perception, not that much European perception. So one reason for that disagreement between the United States and the European members of the NATO is the threat perceptions towards China and Russia. So European Union has a different threat perception and US has a different understanding of it. So that is one reason. Second thing is NATO is no more that effective. If you see what is happening in Afghanistan, they are stuck there for 2 decades and not been able to do anything substantive. Libya again. So it is European members primarily think that NATO is no more effective defense mechanism as it used to be earlier. And therefore, they are thinking in terms of if they have to invest money, because America is reluctant to share the cost of defense which NATO requires, instead of sharing it with the United States of America, there is a greater urgency of creating an Europe-specific defense mechanism. And that is why these debates are becoming more and more relevant today. That is the basic reason, I think.
The US-China trade war is expected to go on for much longer as fresh troubles brew between the countries over Hong Kong and Xinjiang. Last week, US President Donald Trump gave his assent to the controversial Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, the HKHRDA. Now, the lower house of the US Congress, the House of Representatives, has passed a bill to sanction officials of Xinjiang over the alleged human rights violations of the Uyghurs. China has strongly protested this. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has demanded that the US stop using Xinjiang as a way to interfere in China's domestic affairs. The new bill, titled the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act, was passed by the House of Representatives on December 3rd. It requires US federal agencies to report on the human rights status of the Uyghur community in Xinjiang province, in the far west of China. It would also require the government to impose sanctions on Chen Quanguo, a senior member of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China and a party secretary for Xinjiang. In response to this law, the Chinese government has imposed sanctions on several US-based NGOs, including Human Rights Watch and National Endowment for Democracy. There are also reports that China is planning to ban non-diplomatic political personnel from the US, such as Congress members and other politicians, from entering the country. This can also further increase tensions in the ongoing trade negotiations that the US has been having with China over the long-drawn trade dispute. Trade negotiations have recently witnessed several major developments, as the implementation of tariffs imposed during the dispute have been deferred, and several major concessions have been made from both sides. Observers were expecting an early conclusion to the negotiations and a trade deal, but that seems set to be derailed as the US Congress and the Trump administration passed legislation on China's economic matters. And in our last story, close to 40 Palestinian prisoners in the Ashkelon prison in southern Israel began an open-ended hunger strike on Thursday. They had announced a strike on Tuesday, citing the punitive and repressive measures taken by the prison administration. The prisoners are also protesting the terrible living conditions. They are forced to endure harsh and excessive procedures such as violent searches of their rooms and private property and belongings. Earlier in October, the prison authorities had transferred many of the prisoners from Ashkelon prison to Nafha prison. The prisoners were not allowed to take their belongings with them. On their return to Ashkelon, they discovered that their belongings had been destroyed. They also found out that the prison authorities had desecrated copies of the Quran. In response, the prisoners refused to take back the belongings and wrote a protest letter to the prison authorities. The authorities responded by warning the prisoners that if they launched a hunger strike, they would be transferred to Section 12 of the prison, an area which is unsafe and extremely unhealthy and is infested with all kinds of bugs and insects. That's all we have in this episode of the International Daily Roundup. To know more about these stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching.